When I was, um, before I ever even got started wrestling for Nick Goulas, who was the local promoter there in Memphis, Nick Goulas and Roy Welch, uh, I I don't know if I'd ever even mustered up the nerve to actually say to Jackie, because I was still small, I certainly didn't look like a wrestler, but I was at the same time I was like at home, in after high school and just starting going to college. I was like a backyard wrestler just because I watched all this stuff. Me and my buddy Mike Mashburn and Robert Reed, all the guys that lived on my street, Vernon Avenue, we would wrestle around all the time and do all these kind of crazy backyard wrestling moves. And I at that time, that's when I was thinking, man, I would love to be able to do what Jackie Fargo does for a living. This looks like so much fun. What a great thing to do, with your life. But I could never get up the nerve to ever say to Jackie, this is something that I would like to do, and would you help me get into this? But one day I was working up there in this little office beside the club, and I was painting away, and all of a sudden this young guy comes walking into my little office there, and he said, "I'm looking for Jackie Fargo." And I said, "Well, he's not here." I said, "That's his club next door, but he won't be in till a little bit later on." I said, "He doesn't get into about 6 o'clock." I said, "What'd you need with him?" And he said, "Well, I'm a wrestler, and I just came down from, I forget, I think somewhere in Missouri." And he said, "I was just wanting to talk to him about getting booked here in Memphis." And I looked at the guy, and, he just didn't, he didn't really look that much like a wrestler. He just looked sort of like me, right? Just maybe a little bit heavier. And his name was Jerry as well. His name was Jerry Vickers. And I said, "So you're a wrestler?" And he said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I'm kind of just getting started. So that's why I'm, coming down from St. Louis, and I'd like to see if I can get booked down here." And so I said, "Well, how did you get into it? How did you get started?" And he said, "Well, I just got a guy up there, a local guy, to kind of train me, and then got a pair of tights and boots and that sort of thing, and just started wrestling in smaller places." And I said, "Dang." Well, I said, because I really was just, I really wanted to talk to Jackie Fargo about, I just wanted to try it myself one time, but I didn't have the nerve to ask Jackie. And he said, "Well, if you've never wrestled before," he said, they're not going to let you, just start wrestling for Nick Goulas and them." And he said, you need to try to get started somewhere smaller." And he said, "Matter of fact, I'm wrestling Saturday night over in West Memphis, Arkansas." And I said, "What do you mean you're wrestling?" And I had even no idea about independent wrestling or anything. I had never even heard of something like that. And over in West Memphis, Arkansas, right across the bridge, they had an old promoter named Aubrey Griffith, who used to wrestle for Nick Goulas, and he didn't wrestle for him anymore. And then he started up his own little promotion business, where he would have matches once a week in an old rundown abandoned movie theater. It was called the Avon Theater in West Memphis, Arkansas. And they had taken out about the first 15 rows of the front rows of the seats in front of the screen, and they set a ring up down there. The screen was still there in the movie theater, and that was on one side, and then the seats were all the way back, just like you're watching a movie, and then the ring was down at the end. And for a ring light, they had an old galvanized wash tub hanging up above the ring with like 3 or 4 150-watt light bulbs in it, and that was their makeshift ring light. And he said, "We have these matches over here every week." And he said, and then everything was a gimmick then. Everybody was kind of self-serving. What he was wanting to do was, I found out later, he had an extra pair of wrestling boots that he wanted to sell. And he said, "You're not gonna ever be able to be a wrestler unless you have wrestling boots." And he said, "I just happen to have a pair that I'll sell you for $50. And $50 back then was like, oh my gosh, that was like my car cost $250, and they wanted $50 for this pair of wrestling boots. But when I saw him, it was like, he pulls them out of this bag, and it was like a gold brick or something to me. I said, "Oh my gosh." there's a pair of actual wrestling boots that I could own. And so anyway, I went and scrounged up the money, and I gave the guy the $50, and he had a pair of tights that they let me buy, and he said, "That's all you need to be a wrestler." And I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh!" And he said, "I'll take you over to." He said, "I'll take you over Saturday. If you'll introduce me to Jackie Fargo later, I'll take you over Saturday with me and introduce you to Aubrey Griffith, and maybe he would book you." So I go, well, actually we went before Saturday. It was like a Thursday or something. I get with this guy, Jerry Vickers. We go over to this Avon Theater on a Thursday afternoon, and I meet Aubrey Griffith. And Jerry said, "Whatever you do, don't tell him that you have not ever wrestled before. If he asks you if you've wrestled before, you say yeah." And he said, "Because they're not going to use just somebody off the street that's never had a match." I said, "Okay." And he said, "So if he asks you if you ever wrestled before, you just say yeah. And if he asks you where, just say that you wrestled some down in Florida. So, he won't question any more than that." So we go in, I meet Aubrey Griffith. I actually had remembered him from doing matches for Nick Goulas, a few years back or whatever. And so Jerry Vickers said, "Aubrey, this is Jerry Lawler, and he wants to wrestle for you some over here on your promotion." He said, "Oh, hey, Jerry, how you doing?" He said, "You ever wrestled before?" I said, "Oh, yes, sir." He said, "Where'd you wrestle?" I said, "Oh, man, I wrestled down in Florida." He said, "Really? What promoter did you wrestle for down there?"
Oh,
And
boy.
I just went, and my face like turned bright red, and it was like my face was flashing. "I'm a liar. I'm lying. I'm not telling the truth here." And he knew it immediately. And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, you know what? No, it's no big deal." He said, "I don't have anything right now." He said, "But leave me your name and number, and if something comes up, I'll give you a call." And then the fun. Now I got ahead of myself on this story a little bit. I told you earlier that Jackie Fargo had a radio show along with Eddie Bond.
Right.
And when they gave me the job as being the artist, they also gave me a job as being a radio disc jockey from 7 to midnight on the air shift that nobody wanted. Nobody wanted to be on this country music station from 7 to midnight. And so they gave me that air shift, and I had a radio show too, that nobody listened to. So anyway, when the promoter said, "I don't really have anything right now, but if something comes up, I'll give you a call," I threw in my whole card and said, "Well, I was just thinking," I told Jerry Vickers this. I said, "I was just thinking that if you let me wrestle for you over here, I'm on the radio over in Memphis, and I could plug the matches for free." And he said, "What?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I do my own show every night from 7 to midnight." He said, "I could talk about your matches, and it wouldn't cost you a dime." And he said, "So you can make a commercial and plug my matches for free?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, okay, I'm going to book you and Jerry this Saturday night as the tag team." And so, boom, right there, all of a sudden, I was booked in a match. I've never trained, never had a match for anybody at all. And then I was going to have this match with Jerry Vickers just because of the fact that I could plug the matches on the radio for free. And so I started plugging the matches there on the radio station, and I came in on like, I don't know, I went in and I had the match, got in the ring with two guys called the Executioners. They threw me out of the ring immediately. I wanted to try a move that I'd seen somebody do over in Memphis, where some guy got sailed through the top and middle rope, and he never even grabbed the ropes to try to break his fall. He just went rolling. He went sailing out, landed on the floor, and did this like tumbling roll, and came up unscathed. And it was a wrestler named Young Anaya. I remember seeing that move, and as soon as I got in the ring with this guy, I said, "Throw me through the ropes." And so this guy grabs me by the hair and the seat of my pants. He runs across, throws me through the ropes. I didn't grab the ropes or anything. I just went sailing out of the ring. And then the next thing I remember, I was in the back in the dressing room behind the movie screen, and Jerry Vickers was fanning me with his towel. And I'm sitting, I'm sitting in a chair, and I went, what happened? He said, what happened? You said, you went sailing out of the ring and landed right on your head on the concrete floor. He said, you're just now waking up. I said, holy crap. So anyway, that was my first match. But I was like, just being in the ring for those few seconds was so awesome that then the next week I started plugging the matches again. And I mean, I made, the funny thing was Nick Goulas and them would promote on our station too. They would actually buy commercials, and Eddie Bond would do the commercials, and Eddie would do it because they had been advertising on the station every week forever. So it was so taken for granted that Eddie would just come on and say, well, big match is coming up this Monday night. Looks like on the main event, Jackie Fargo is going to be going against, or Jackie Fargo and Herb Welch going to be going against the interns with Dr. Ken Ramey. And then we got Don and Al Green going against blah, 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 Phil Hickerson. And that's how he would do the commercials, right? And so I went in one day and I got the whole sound effects library, and I sat down and I put together this commercial for the Saturday night wrestling show at the Avon Theater over in Arkansas. I put this big wrestling bell on the beginning, and I put this crowd noises in the back, and so it comes on, ding ding ding, the crowd, and then I had this voice going, the main event, West Memphis, Arkansas, Jerry Lawler and Jerry Vickers going against the Execution. Just to put this elaborate commercial together, right? And so I'm playing that on my show every night, and for a few days, and then all of a sudden, I get there, and like on a Friday, the matches were going to be on Saturday, and I get there, and Eddie Bond is on the phone with somebody, right? Eddie Bond was the program director of the station, and he was this country music star in Memphis, and he was a singer and all this stuff, and he was partners with Jackie in the nightclub business. So I hear Eddie on the phone going, no, Jackie, don't do that. Don't, Jackie, it's no need. He's a nice kid. Don't do that. And all of a sudden he like motions for me. He says, like, pick up the extension, And this was back in the day. You could have, you had an extension phone. You could just pick up another phone and you could listen to the conversation that was going on, right? So I quietly picked up the phone, and here's Eddie talking to Jackie Fargo, right? And Jackie Fargo says, no, this is a bunch of BS. That kid, after all I've done for him, he's going over there in Arkansas and he's putting on these outlaw matches, these little phony matches with this bunch of punks. He said, that makes our wrestling look bad. He said, I'm not going to stand for it. And Eddie said, no, Jackie, calm down now. It's no big deal. He said, no, it is a big deal to us. We bust our ass over here on Monday nights, and then they go over there on Saturday nights and do some crap like that. I'm not going to have him be a part of that. He said, me and Dennis Hall and Tojo, we're going to go over there Saturday night, and we're going to break some arms. We're going to hurt some people. We're going to bust some heads and break some legs and stuff. And my eyes got like big as saucers. I'm looking going. And then Eddie says, Jackie, don't do that. Come on, this is Jerry Lawler. We know this kid. I don't care. They're not going to get away with doing that kind of stuff. And so he hangs up the phone, and I was in shock. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to go over there tomorrow night, and Jackie Fargo, Dennis Hall, and Tojo Yamamoto are going to come in and cripple us all. They're going to break our legs and stuff, right? So I rushed. I called up Jerry Vickers, and I called up Aubrey Griffith, and I said, listen, I just got off the phone. Jackie Fargo, they're all going to come over and beat us all up Saturday night. I can't come. And Aubrey Griffith just started laughing. He said, they're not going to come over here to West Memphis, Arkansas. They're all booked somewhere else on Saturday night anyway. They're not going to come over here and beat anybody up. He's just trying to do that to discourage you, to keep you from coming over and working this little outlaw show that we have going on. They don't like that kind of stuff. And I said, are you sure? And he said, of course I'm sure. Jackie Fargo is not going to come to the Avon Theater with Tojo Yamamoto and break anybody's arms or legs. Trust me. So anyway, I told Jerry Vickers that night. I went ahead and I told Jerry Vickers, I said, look, I'm still nervous. I said, when we're in the ring out there, I said, when you're in there, I'll watch the front door. And when I'm in there, you watch the front door. And he said, if anybody comes through that even looks like a wrestler, we'll burn the wind. We'll haul ass out of here, right? So we went, we had our match. I was a nervous wreck, but sure enough, nobody showed up to break our arms or break our legs. And then I realized that what Aubrey was saying was right. And the very next week, Jackie Fargo came to me and he said, "Look, kid, we don't like you doing that crap over there." He said, "But I see that you've already been doing it. So let me ask you this. If I get you booked in Memphis, if I get you booked in Memphis for Gulas and Welch, will you stop going to that crap over there and stop plugging it on the radio and all this kind of stuff?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll never think about that again." And so sure enough, the next week I was booked on Memphis TV